Hello and welcome once again to an exploration of Gurdjieff's Esoteric Christianity. I happened to see this photo from 1982. It was a British Airways flight that stopped in KL to get the plane serviced, and this is a photo of the crew. And this is what Britain looked like very recently. Well, I was in church last week, and at some point in the past, one of the ladies there had decided to become an airline stewardess. And at the end of the Mass, when the priest hands out the sacrament to people, she had decided to walk up and down the aisle and to board rows 1 to 5 first, while she stood guard, and then afterwards to board rows 6 to 10 and so on. I was there this week, and there was only about 12 people in church in total. And one of the men stood up and took her place and was doing the stewardess boarding up and down the aisle, and he looked very happy to have something to do. And suddenly a number of realizations hit me. He is simply copying what she is doing. He's not thinking that there's only 12 people in church. And he's very happy to have something to do and was beaming. Although he sees, in the sense that he has a visual picture of the world coming to him, he does not consider what he is seeing. He has eyes, but not to see. He is mechanically copying somebody else, and he considers that to be being alive. And what dawned on me as I walked home from the church that day was that isn't all of society exactly like that? One copies another, and it gives them the sense of being alive. And they're very pleased to have something to do. There's something else strange that has changed in the last 20 or 30 years. That people have these grins or laugh, even politicians laugh, quite strangely when they're being interviewed. It's a sign that they are not really here, that they consider the whole thing to be a joke because they don't feel grounded in the reality of life, because of the desacralization of the modern world. In the city of London, where there's a big financial district, in the morning the streets are flooded with high-powered people powering down the pavement. But isn't it just the same? Aren't they also copying one to the next? And you could say that the greatest dream of ordinary people is that they get right to the end of their life without ever having met anybody real. Because it's like oil and water, because the gravity centers are sealed from each other, and to move from one to another to ascend an octave is very painful. And so, my boy, in the presence of each one of your favorites, the omnipresent Okidanok undergoes the process of Jadklum, and in them also each of its 3 holy forces blends independently with other cosmic crystallizations for a corresponding actualization. But since they have entirely ceased to fulfill being part Kadol duty, chiefly because of the abnormal conditions of being existence gradually established by them themselves, none of these holy sources of everything existing is transubstantiated for their own presences, except the denying source alone. The crystallizations that arise in their presence from the first and third holy forces are utilized almost entirely by the common cosmic trogo-autoecocratic process, and only the crystallizations of the second part of the omnipresent Okedanok, the holy denying, serve for the coating of their own presence. Hence, most of them remain with a presence consisting of the planetary body alone and are thus for themselves destroyed forever. Because it's hot and very sunny now in Sussex, I'm often in the park, performing all those methods that I do. And as I leave the park and walk home along the grass, it's always as if I see the world from behind me. My perception changes because the methods have accelerated the subtle bodies, the higher being bodies, and I am experiencing how they perceive the world. It feels very natural, and it's a little hard to explain, but if I was going to explain it, I could say that it's almost as if there is a translucent film that is wider than the physical body, that appears to receive the vision of the world as a whole. So it's not like the light is going through the two holes in your face, but that the whole field receives it. When the planetary body dies, there is something that can remain. If I don't perform those methods of Tai Chi and so on, I don't feel it so strongly, though it may still be there due to the way I've lived my life. Okay, I had cause to read a particular passage that struck me from the Gospels, which, considering Gurdjieff's teaching, is quite startling. I get the feeling that I'm shocked by things several times before they really go in. Let me read this passage. Jesus withdrew by boat privately to a solitary place, and hearing of this, the crowds followed him on foot from the towns. When Jesus landed and saw a large crowd, he had compassion on them, and he healed their sick. As evening approached, the disciples came to him and said, "This is a remote place, and it's already getting late. Send the crowds away so they can go to the villages and buy themselves some food." Jesus replied, "They do not need to go away. You give them something to eat." "We have here only 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish, they answered. "Bring them here to me," he said. And he directed the people to sit down on the grass, taking the 5 loaves and the 2 fish, and looking up to heaven, he gave thanks, and he broke the loaves. Then he gave them to the disciples, and the disciples gave them to the people. They all ate and were satisfied, and the disciples picked up 12 basketfuls of broken pieces that were left over. The number of those who ate was about 5,000 men, besides the women and the children. From this passage alone, you can be certain that Christianity is in fact an ancient tradition of extremely high knowledge, an alchemical tradition, and that the methods that are passed down, which are alchemical, which include the Trinity, the octaves, and all the other, what is called the sacraments, that is what Christianity is. There are people who followed the fourth way who have come to the conclusion that what is missing for us is that we don't get higher energies to enter into our body. The higher energies aren't there, they don't transpire through us, and that's really the problem. That's what their opinion is. That opinion is not correct. And the reason is that the core of Gurdjieff's teaching is that your entire structure is a mess. It means that your intelligence that functions through separate centers, they are not functioning correctly. Emotional energy goes into the physical energy. Sexual energy is parasited into the mental plane. And it's very difficult to fix all these things. You have to separate them with long work, which is known in Christianity as repentance. Repentance, which means that you observe wrong functioning and you make it disconnect. And this can be quite painful and can last a very long time. You can tell that a path is wrong, or at least just superficial, when people do not do repentance type of work. And holding certain physical positions can be a kind of repentance that's done through the body. It doesn't always have to be psychological, but you do have to clear the darkness deliberately out of you over a long period of time. If not, just having high energies flowing through you is not going to make a change. It would be like putting high-octane petrol into an engine that is broken. And those ideas come from people who are not willing or interested to what is called face themselves, to face themselves. Let's have another passage from Mr. Gurdjieff. But is it not possible for man to be at once transposed to another stage of being by a wave of emotion? Someone asked. I do not know, said G. We are again talking in different languages. A wave of emotion is indispensable, but it cannot change moving habits. It cannot of itself make centers work rightly, which all their lives have been working wrongly. To change and repair this demands separate, special and lengthy work. Then you say, transpose a man to another level of being. But from this point of view, a man does not exist for me. There is a complex mechanism consisting of a whole series of complex parts. A wave of emotion takes place in one part, but the other parts may not be affected by it at all. No miracles are possible in a machine. It is a miracle enough that a machine is able to change. But you want all laws to be violated. What of the robber on the cross? Asked one of those present. Is there anything in this story or not? That is another thing entirely, said G. And it illustrates an altogether different idea. In the first place, it took place on the cross. That is, in the midst of terrible suffering to which ordinary life holds nothing equal. Secondly, it was at the moment of death. This refers to the idea of man's last thoughts and feelings at the moment of death. In life, these pass by. They are replaced by other habitual thoughts. There can be no prolonged wave of emotion in life, and therefore it cannot give rise to a change of being. Yeah, I'm just thinking about emotions and moral statements. Yeah, I had this week I had a mouse in the kitchen, and And in the apartment, there's no way to really remove the units to get behind it, so it was a bit of a nightmare. And on the fourth day, I had this real pain inside. When I was confronted in the morning with more mouse droppings in the cupboard, and I realised I was going to have to do even more DIY, as if it was going to go on until the end of my life, and my heart really dropped. Looking inside, I could see that my entire emotional centre just was feeling really bad. Like the body was willing, the head was willing, theoretically anyway, but the heart was not in it. It was just resenting it. The horse refused to get in the bridle. It was too much. And doing some work a couple of weeks ago, I realized the importance of moral rules or of clear technical instructions. Because I could see that without these words inside the head, you would not do the right thing. They are actually very important, even though the practices that you do take you beyond the words, but the words are kind of hangers for inner functions to happen. Just like, the words of prayers cause certain feelings to manifest themselves, and those feelings are doing the work of changing you. But even though we're going beyond words, the words are very important. In the same way, the simple discipline of getting up early and making your bed and all that kind of stuff is very important, because the octave is quite long and it stretches from the physical to the supernatural world, and whilst we are alive we have to keep hitting every single note. We have to do many types of work which maybe seem quite unrelated to each other. If society was in a better state, many things would be done for us and we will be carried through by the emotional wave of society. When that's not in place, then you have to do a lot of additional work yourself. I would say that if the original Christian methods were put back, or at least people started to do them again, and to understand them again. And the same for all traditions, because there is only one knowledge. Then human beings have got possibilities going forward. I think I'll end with the words of a Taoist sage, who explains that under duress he came to commit himself to the path. Provided that one strives and does not become remiss, there is nothing that cannot be healed, nor a single virtue that cannot be attained. It depends solely upon the perfection of the discipline of the ascetic. When I was young, I had many difficulties, and I reached such a state that no one would help me. Finally, I learned to practice my discipline without intermission, and in almost no time, half my worries had left me. From that time on, in my body and in my spirit, I have known nothing but calm and peace. Slowly, with assiduous practice, hardly noticing the waxing and waning of the moon or marking the passing of the years, my worldly thoughts became gradually slighter, and now it is as if I have forgotten the old habits of my former human desires. I do not even know how many decades of my life have passed over me until now, but somewhere in the middle of my life I had occasion to go away into the mountains, where I escaped the world for 30 years. When I look back on that time, It seems like a very short dream. Please take care.